Right, so it's Monday, the 5th of July, 2021, and of course, this is the bottom line where business runs at the speed of thought. My name is Kwesi Efree, coming your way tonight from our studios here at Rage. Here in Accra, we are live on DSTV channel 277, and we are live on our Facebook page, Chairman Kwesi Efree, and of course, on our news page as well. Tonight, we discuss the economic partnership agreement between Ghana and the European Union. So if you have any question, you may want to put them up. All the people or all the concerns that have been raised regarding the collapse of our local businesses. Tonight, we are gathering experts. We are gathering people who are in the world of trade and people who have a clearer understanding of this partnership between our country and by and large the whole of Africa. The other economic blocs are signing. How it is going to be for our businesses. What kind of access are we having to the European markets? Is Ghana going to be a dumping site to the countries in Europe? These are fears that have been expressed by certain people, certain economists, and certain business owners. We want to have a critical look at this. The Ministry of Trade and Industry has, however, refuted most of these allegations, but we want to get into it and analyze it properly for you. So if you are in your house, you want to watch this program tonight and make a good assessment for yourself, how you are going to position yourself to take an advantage of this partnership agreement and how it will battle the African Free Trade Area, which has also begun and is going on in earnest. So you want to stick and stay with us on the program tonight. Before we get into the details of our discussions tonight, we want to go around the world and see the stories that are making round in the world of business. Stay with us.
The Securities and Exchange Commission says it has received liquidation order for 3 of the different financial management companies. According to Deputy Director of SEC, Paul Ababio, the Registrar General will engage stakeholders through creditors meeting to spell out how investors can sign up for the bailout.
We also have powers of freezing assets. Now, basically, this is a power that is given to us when we realize that you are committing a crime. And if you are committing a crime and people have assets with you, we need to go to court to get an order to freeze these assets from moving. Otherwise, the next thing is that this asset is going to move from the firm's name into your private name or into a sister's name or a relative's name. Then finally, we have powers of issuing penalties. This happens on a daily basis, and the penalty ranges from 50 penalty units to 4,500 penalty units.
The Ghana Commodities Exchange is set to connect farmers to their customers through technological marketplace. According to the Chief Executive Tuchi Goki Ivowi, users will have the advantage to connect trader on the platform anywhere in the world.
What we do whenever we bring on board new members, we take them through an extensive training and orientation. Some of them decide that actually I want to do this myself. Some of them decide I want to go through a farmer-based organization. And then a third group says, I want to do it myself, but I will get some help. So this is one way that we've been able to start to look at bringing youth into the whole agricultural market. Before, it was just whatever's happening at the farm, the commodities are produced, somehow they go to market, they sell. But now we know that we can get wider markets if we come through the exchange.
The economic partnership agreement between Ghana and the EU is to enable liberalization, development and diversification of bilateral trade between Ghana and the European Union. Alan Tremontaine, Minister of Trade and Industry, and Valdis Dombrovski, Vice President and Commissioner of the European Union, have together announced effective from July 2021 of the implementation of the interim economic partnership agreement between these two countries. This agreement is meant to strengthen the long-standing trade and economic relations between Ghana and the EU. The Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta has expressed excitement over Ghana being finally delisted from the Financial Action Task Force grey list. According to him, this is a great relief to the country as this renews the international community's confidence in Ghana's anti-money laundering and countering the financing of terrorism regime. He said this at a press briefing in Accra.
I think the issue of the beneficial ownership is very important because then your ability to hide money through other systems are curtailed, and as we get more digitalized, you can't really have handbags of money flowing through the borders or anything for you to be able to get it into the financial system. And that is key. So the strengthening of the NGO area, strengthening of FIC, awareness by the public and the institutions, so that there's self-regulation and clear penalties would also come into play here.
The Vice President, Dr. Mahamadou Bawumia, has hailed the decision by the Bank of Ghana to implement a gold purchase program designed to purchase locally produced gold, describing it as a masterstroke in the quest for stronger macroeconomic agreements. Addressing participants at the Ghana Gold Expo 2021 in Takoradi, Dr. Bawumia said the benefit of having a healthy amount of physical gold in the country's reserves are varied and enormous, and described the central bank's decision to purchase locally produced gold as a game changer.
Ghana is Africa's largest gold producer, having overtaken South Africa in 2019. But Ghana's extracted gold assets are based on the royalty take, limited dividends, and corporate income tax of mining companies. These fiscal gains are typically taken in cash, and about 80% of that cash is paid into the consolidated fund. The Bank of Ghana holds a moderate amount of physical gold of about 8.7 tons as part of.
Right, so those are the stories that are making round in the world of business in the country. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we discuss the Economic Partnership Agreement. Stay with us.
Masa Maria am kan ku fiya ya mi dunu mo boje bona jam wai ba ha be biya yuke na mi be bi wai
It's logo the bottom. Where you say it local channels na mo hedo. And so pictures here clear. E 5 times better. As in other channels go be show hormone. So go the mention man tram rakra why. Oh, what the pictures. What a picture. What do 8D plus decoder or multi TV and now electroland agent Piao. Natural local channels now HD the here so better.
star 879 hash.
Numbers from Kubo box and now the advert 80 channels now. You can
get an HD Plus decoder from now till the 9th of August for just 89.99 Ghana cedis and enjoy 3 months free subscription. Enjoy all the excitement and live sports action in the HD Plus Air Bosso Fili promo. Promo lasts from 7th June to 9th August 2021. Visit hd-plus.com.gh or call 024-243-9872 for more info.
Half a nose for good things.
Right, you welcome back from the break. I've stated earlier on that tonight we are talking about the interim economic partnership agreement recently signed by our government. That's the government of Ghana, led by the Minister of Trade and Industry and the European Union. We want to get into the detailed analysis of all of this tonight. I already have my guests seated here in the studio, and to my immediate left is Solomon Ejay, the Executive Director, Ghana Startup Network and Pan-African SMEs Network. He's been championing an agenda and a certain partnership with the African Free Continental Trade Area. And we'll be asking questions about how these two agreements will be able to run together, whether we are not going to have any friction and all of that. So, good evening to you. Thank you very much for joining us, Solomon.
Good evening, bro.
And right, I'm doing very well. Good to be back here. Paul Frimpong is an economist with CGIA and an investment analyst as well. Thank you very much for joining us, and good evening to you, Paul.
Good evening, and thank you for having me.
Right, I hope you're doing very well.
I'm good, thanks.
Right, so we are having also on Zoom tonight Francis Kofi Kranchisechi, who is a lecturer and a consultant, Center for African Trade and Investment Policies, and also a member of the Ghana Chamber of Commerce and Industries. He will be joining us on Zoom. Just before we get in, let's see the Minister of Trade at the program of the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding between Ghana and the European Union.
Alan Chirmantin, Minister of Trade and Industry of Ghana, Vladis Dombrovski, Executive Vice President and Commissioner for Trade of the European Union, together have announced that July 1st, 2021 marks the start of the effective implementation by Ghana of the Interim Economic Partnership Agreement between the European Union and Ghana. Since December 2016, the EPA guarantees duty-free, quota-free access to the EU market for products made in Ghana, and as of today, Ghana starts liberalizing access to its market for 80% of the total volume of EU products. This is crucial for developing and diversification of our local bilateral trade. It also creates better opportunities for EU companies to trade and invest in Ghana and produce goods for export to the wider African market under the preferences available under the African Continental Free Trade Area. Although the EPA was concluded in December 2007 and ratified by Ghana in 2016, the implementation of the tariff liberalization schedule was delayed pursuant to technical adjustment agreed between Ghana and EU. The necessary rules of origin document to be used for trading, including a certificate of origin and origin declaration, have now been developed, and the codes and systems are in place for the start of the effective implementation of tariff cuts for EU products entering Ghana.
Well, so that was a story brought to you by my colleague Winston Taki. He had the privilege of doing the coverage of the Memorandum of Understanding, the signing of the MOU between Ghana and the EU. In the course of the discussion, we may have to speak to him on some of the issues. But let me come back here in the studio. And as I introduced you earlier on, my guests are already seated here. And we also have Francis Kofi Kranchisechi, lecturer and consultant, Center for African Trade and Investment Policies, and a member of the Ghana Chamber of Commerce and Industries, join us on Zoom. If you can hear me, good evening to you, and thank you very much for joining us, Francis. I hope you're doing well.
I'm doing good. Good evening to you, and good evening to my co-panelists. Good evening to everyone.
Right. So I'll come back to the studio briefly before I come to you again. Let me begin with you, Paul, on the signing finally. We had to ratify. At a point, we had to postpone. Now ratify, and then finally sign the Economic Partnership Agreement. What does this mean for us as a country?
Right. So the EPA, Economic Partnership Agreement, I think there has been a lot of conversations around it many years ago since this conversation started, and as it's were, and with many agreements that has to be signed, you need to have a lot of consultations between member countries. So the EPA, in a sense, it says to create a free trade area between the European Union member countries and between Ghana. At first, it was between EPA and the ACP countries. And this is coming back from the Lomé Agreement in the 1975, and this was done before the formation of the WTO, which is the World Trade Organization, in 1995. So the challenges from the Lomé Agreement led to the formation of the Cotonou Agreement, which was done in 2000, which ran up to 2020. So leading from that, I think one of the key elements of the EPA, which was not then available in the Lomé Agreement, was the what we call the most favored nation clause, or the reciprocity clause. Here, under this WTO article or agreement, what it states is that once you offer a concession or privileges or immunities to a country, be it the country is a member of WTO or not, you must extend the same preferences to all WTO member countries. So that in itself creates a big room for a lot of discussions, right? So what Ghana has done is to actually go in as a single country, because at the EPA level they are dealing with the ACP, about 79 countries.
Yes.
And out of these 79 countries, 40 of them are described as least developed countries. So by least developed countries, we mean countries that have very low socioeconomic indicators. Their human development index is very low. And out of that 40 of those 79 that are having negotiations with the EU about the EPA, 33 of them are in Sub-Saharan Africa. Of course, Ghana is not part. They try to get Ghana to be part of the LDC. We say, no, we are a developing country. We are not a least developing country. So what we are looking at here is that Ghana has now signed onto the interim partnership agreement with the EU to open up our market over a period of time.
So, sorry to distract you, but because of the distance, I'm sure you can be able to remove the mask if that will not bother you. But you are giving us a lot of detailed background there, so we would want to be able to listen to it very well, and based on that, do proper analysis. So you have taken us right from where it began.
That's the Lomé agreement, 1975
exactly,
to 1999.
1999.
And then ended, and then the initial what we call the Cotonou Agreement.
Yes, so in fact, I had read about the Cotonou Agreement, but you have taken us far back. So it's a learning curve for us to be able to position this very well. So currently at the Cotonou Agreement, we want you to continue with that.
So with the Cotonou Agreement, like I said, from the Lomé Agreement, there were some new WTO rules that were not there, because WTO itself was formed in 1995. So prior to that, there was agreements between countries, but then it was more of unilateral.
Right.
And then the WTO article, one of the main articles of the WTO, which has sparked a lot of controversy around world trade, is what we call the most favored nation clause, which states that if you are a member country of the WTO and you give preferential treatment to a country, whether that country is member of WTO or not, you must open up the same preferential treatment, be it tariffs or import, to other member countries which are part of the WTO.
Right.
Again, when you look at Ghana, where we are, we have other agreements with the ECOWAS, which is more of, started with the political arrangement. Now we have economic activity that we want to do. Now we've also come into the Africa Continental Free Trade Area.
Exactly.
So there are a lot of interconnectedness in terms of how, in the midst of this agreement with the EU, you are satisfying your regional commitment, you are satisfying your continental commitment. At the same time, you need to make sure that you are not flaunting on any WTO agreements. Okay, so when you look at it now, of course, there are major concerns for major businesses and certain sectors of the economy when it comes to this EPA. And of course, in the midst of it, they've tried to introduce some clauses or chapters in this interim partnership agreement that sought to, first of all, delay the introduction of such concern that has been raised by people around this EPA.
Exactly.
So you are saying that, okay, this EPA can destroy certain sectors. They are saying that those sectors are not going to be touched now.
For you, does it look good? From where you start, does it look good? What does this mean for us as a country?
I'm not going to do the
before we come into the details of all of it.
Exactly.
Summarily, does it look good?
I think it will not add so much to Ghana. I mean, if you look at the now
in our commerce, in our trade,
not so much.
in our partnership with other countries.
In the long run, not so much.
In the long run,
not so
the
much.
EPA will not impact Ghana on our economy that much.
Yeah.
Right. We'll come back to you, but let me come to you, Sulu, now. You are with SMEs, with startups, with small businesses. You are fighting for protection all the time. As we speak, you are talking about the Startup Act and all of that. And all of a sudden, we signed the Economic Partnership Agreement. Paul says it will not be too much of a benefit to us as a country in the long run. Not too much, even though there will be. What does this mean for you as an industry?
Well, thank you, Chrissy, for getting us here. I was thinking in line with what my brother just said, that in the long run, what really, what difference are we hoping to see in the long run for all these things? Because, like Radi said, Ghana is working at the moment. We got the ECOWAS stuff there, we got the AFTA now in place. And already we are somehow trading with the EU on certain levels. So what difference would it bring to the table? That's what we need to look out for. And I think that although it is good that we're able to get a bigger market for our produce and you know, services and all that, we also need to be sure that the people who are working in the country get protected in terms of competitiveness and all that. Because, for instance, if you open up and you say that, okay, so people from Europe can trade in Ghana easily. I mean, for instance, for now, there are certain laws that say that you can come in here and do business, but at a certain level. But then once you get that open, what it mean, or does it mean that now what we do here as SMEs, those coming in may also be allowed to do certain things that we do here? That's what we need to look at in terms of competitiveness. And if they are allowed to trade or to produce just as we are doing, what shows that we will be protected enough to be able to also produce more? Because already those coming in may come in with some lot of resources that we may not have access to. All right, so what is the government putting in place to ensure that we are protected? That's one key thing for me and for our sector. You know, because already if there's an issue of let's say partnershiping, where you come in and you are supposed to partner with some Ghanaian holding XME, then that's something to talk about. But then if they have the chance to come in and operate fully and take their benefits out, we that don't have the resources to produce more, we may be sidelined one way or the other.
I will come back to you to ask you about the fact that you will now still have a bigger market. You have access to a bigger market. I mean, you now have access to the European market, not only the Ghanaian market.
But
I'll come in.
How about the production aspect as well? The market is there.
You would have investments. The ministry says it's looking at.
So that's what we need to look at.
Improving FDI. I'll come.
That's
to
what we need to
but
go
let me come to you, Francis, to ask about, if you are still on Zoom, if you can hear us. Let me ask you what this means for us as a country. I mean, for you as an economist, we have been talking about our foreign exchange rate, the dollar rate, and all of the issues that have come up with it. Now, the European market is opening up to us. We are opening up to their businesses as well, to come in and trade with us. What does this mean for us economically?
Thank you. I am not an economist. I am a law lecturer and a trade and investment practitioner.
Consultant.
So
let me put it that way.
Yes,
Trade and
I am not an economist.
Forgive
now,
me on that.
Let me add to what Paul had just said in terms of the EPA and where it began. And let me also state that the EPA scope is very wider and bigger than the free trade area, because with the EPA, it has a very extensive coverage in terms of the scope. In a free trade area, we're only talking about free movement of goods and services, and then also on competition, and then also on intellectual properties. But if you look at EPAs and their nature, they cover, apart from the free trade area aspect of it, they cover also free movement of people, and then government procurement, and then international competition and cooperation, as well as international dispute resolution mechanism. So that gives a bigger scope over on ordinary free trade area, as we have, for example, in the African continental free trade area. And I must also give a background to this EPA we're talking about. The EPA was not originally for country-to-country agreement, as we have now as an interim agreement. This was originally for the ECOWAS community with the European Union. And so in 2014, the agreement was that all the 16 countries of the ECOWAS would sign the agreement, and then if 2/3 of them ratify, then it will become an implementable document or agreement. Unfortunately, by 2018, we've had 15 of them, except Nigeria, which has refused to sign the agreement, let alone to ratify. And so that has driven us to this stage where the countries or EU is moving to have the cooperation with the countries. And this is being done in the waiting for the bigger agreement to take off. So it is very strategic to have an interim because eventually it will be replaced by the EU West African EPA, which is a bigger agreement, which is pending now because Nigeria, as we would expect, has not signed at all. Mauritania and then Gambia signed in 2018, so we left Nigeria to sign. That is why we are at this stage. And I would want to say that for every agreement of this nature in terms of trade and investment, you would have to count the merit and the demerit. My colleagues have said that they are not anticipating much. I would agree with them to a certain extent, but on the other score too, you would understand that even though we had the African Continental Free Trade Area, which people think that it's the biggest in the world, and that is not so, because it is just big because of the numbers of countries that is involved. You understand? If you take the RCEP, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, which is between the Indo-Pacific countries, which control about 30% of the global GDP, they are coming up with another free trade area, which is bigger than the African Continental Free Trade Area. So that poses a bigger risk to what we are celebrating now. What it means is that the European market, which has over 500 million consumers, is also there for us. What we would advise or state is that we have to weigh our advantages on the competitive advantages line and then see which aspect of the trade and the investment arena we can take advantage and leverage on. Because the very foundation and then the rationale behind this EPA is to leverage on trade and investment for sustainable development. So you would agree with my colleagues to an extent that if we do not capacitate our SMEs, especially in this context, and then we allow the imports, policy that we're going to have through this EPA, then we're going to have a challenge. However, we can also take advantage of the European market because we may have to develop our value chain and take advantage of their market to explore and to assess in terms of exports of finished products. So we are not going to say that we are going to encourage our SMEs to stay at the production of raw materials, but as we encourage them and intensify industrialization, we'll come to a stage that we will need that market willy-nilly. So we are not going to discount it as something that is not going to benefit us. But on the longer term, to me, I think that we have the prospect to explore that market, especially when we have taken the opportunity to develop our market forces and also to intensify our trade facilitation mechanisms to build our businesses in order to take advantages of those markets. Because the African market alone, in respect of the 55 countries under the African Continental Free Trade Area, is not going to be enough if we are determined to equip our businesses and let them leverage on the market outside there.
Francis,
So
I like the point about the mechanization of our raw materials. I mean, turning them into finished products before they are exported. But shouldn't that have been done? Shouldn't there be a policy by now making sure that we are moving from the raw material producing country into finished products before we do this kind of agreement, before we begin to get into these kind of agreements where we know that obviously we have access to their market, we are going to export to their market. But if you look at the history, all we have been exporting, for cocoa, for example, we are exporting raw cocoa, even though we are doing finished cocoa as well. In the vegetable industry, for example, we are exporting raw vegetables, where they have had to ban us at certain points because of the standards and the ways and means in which we do our plantation and production and all of that.
It is not as simple as that, because you see, the whole thing that we're talking about is about market access and other access to imported intermediary goods and other opportunities on those markets. Now, you cannot wait in perpetuity because of the African continental free trade area, what is going to happen, as we know, barriers are going to be removed in terms of tariffs and non-tariffs. And then in this case, we're talking about quantitative restrictions. In the EPA, we are talking about quota-free, and then we are also talking about duty-free. Quota-free in the sense that whatever our market and our forces and our businessmen, our SMEs are producing, in whichever product or services they are producing, we have what we call quantitative restrictions being taken away on this market, the European market. So it's not only about tariffs, but also about quantitative restrictions that are most of the time the biggest challenge to most of our companies exporting. So it should be a wake-up call. It should be a challenge to our businesses and the government by way of policy. And when we come to the challenges and then the challenges that are ahead, we'll talk about that. Government must put in the measures to support our businesses. But in the meantime, we cannot say that we are going to allow the partnership to stay unattended to. What we would need to do is to safeguard our market by way of policy.
Right.
Especially where Ghana is still struggling to have an antitrust law or competition law. And we'll talk about that. That is going to be a major challenge. But the point I am making here is that the EPA on its wider terms is to give us a bigger market because, mind you, because of the CAFTA, what is going to happen is that other businesses too from other parts of the continent are going to explore the market of Ghana, as we know. So this is not going to be something that we should be intimidated, but we should take the bull by the horn and then take it as a platform to advocate for our businesses and our SMEs to be capacitated and to be equipped in terms of capacity and technical training.
Francis,
so that they can be able to assess these markets.
Right. So let me come back to the studio on that point. We should strengthen our local capacity to be able to assess these markets. But you have made the point that in the long run, this is not going to help us. There are fears by startups, SMEs, that they will collapse. I mean, it will be a dumping site for the European market. If they have that access 80% or even full, you still think that in the long run it will not help us. Why do you think so?
Yeah, so as I started by saying, I think we need to look at some numbers too.
Sure.
Because you're going into agreements with a set of countries as against one country. Of course, like we all started by saying, the EPA was with member countries from the ACP countries, which are 79 countries. Now, I did mention about these least developed countries, right? And it's a very critical element because it's all factored, whether at a broader level in terms of all the countries together and look at each country. And in the classification of the UN, if you mention about least developed countries, they are the countries at the lowest level. These are countries that sometimes subjected to HIPIC and all of that. So if you are European Union, which is about 16 trillion GDP, by GDP economy, as against Ghana, which is around 68, 70, 70 billion, not trillion, billion. Even the continent, the entire continent of Africa is around 2.6 or so billion, right? So you're going into an agreement, a trade agreement with such a huge power of European Union with about 15, 16 trillion dollar economy, with established and strong institutions, organizations that will in a split second take advantage of the assets that you're going to have. Of course, in this interim agreement, I've seen that there are some clauses that have been introduced to, so to say, protect some of the industries that we call infant industries. Some of them are in the agriculture value chain in Ghana. So in one of the chapters, they talk about trade defense, which is to say that at some point, if a member of the agreement, be it Ghana now, feels threatened in terms of any of the sectors, then it has the right to reintroduce a quota on that sector that they feel, even though it's been liberalized under the EPA, feels it's been threatened, looking at the huge influx from Europe, which is crippling the local institutions. Yes, some of these things are there, but in practicality, I think it's going to be difficult. And I understand the fact that this EPA is not just about trade or movement of goods and services, right? So it's about also government corporations. It's about investment. All right, social and human rights related issues. I mean, between Ghana and the European Union. In there are best practices that we can learn. Of course, there are instances that it will require that we need some technical assistance from the European Union or member countries of the European Union. But in the end, I think if you look at the size of Europe and the size of Ghana, and having to sit down on the table to say that you have access to our market, even if it's just 40% of the Ghanaian market, it's still going to be very difficult to compete. Once you liberalize, you are going to compete. You're going to subject everything that you have to competition. So the question is, do you have the capacity locally to be able to compete with these companies or organizations that will be coming from Europe?
So yes, let me on that point ask you this. Government has said, and we agree that the focus is not only on the movement of goods and services, but establishment of businesses, investment opportunities, social collaboration, and all of that. Government has said that its focus is on the foreign direct investments, the number of businesses that will come up, the people that will come and set up their businesses. For example, in the agricultural sector, as you mentioned, how to create a value chain in the agricultural sector. And so government is focusing on how to rather take advantage of the situation rather than looking at the option of Ghana being a dumping site. Is this not an opportunity for us as a country? We are going to see more jobs, people being recruited because companies are coming in, being set up.
Yeah, so of course, I mean, it's not all gloomy. It's not as if we are saying that everything in the EPA is not something that is workable. That's not what we are saying. Obviously, there are benefits. Once this agreement is signed, we have access to a market of over 500 million people. Okay, so it's about who has the capacity to take advantage of this European market. Of course, we have to meet standards and all of that. And the parts that you mentioned, these are all the reasons why government or Ghana has entered into this agreement. So we are looking at the pros and cons here. Yes, we know there are benefits. We know foreign direct investment is going to solve the level of collaboration, peace, security, governance, human rights issues that we can leverage and learn from the best practices that is happening in Europe. But we still have to deal with the negative aspect of this agreement. We've been there before. I mean, this is not the first time that we've had this kind of agreement. We started, like I said, by the Lomé agreement. Now we went to the Cotonou agreement. Now we have this economic partnership agreement. At the end of the day, I think the focus that has been in most countries in Africa, including Ghana, is about how we position ourselves to be able to trade among ourselves as a sub-region and as a continent. I think that is very key. When you look at Europe, it's one of the most integrated, regions in the world. It's leading the whole world. The 28 countries, they do everything, almost everything together. Right. Except in the recent development about Brexit. Until then, everything has been about Europe. They are union, they move together, they enter into agreement together, and that gives them that strength. So typically what we are looking at is to see how, as a sub-region or as a continent, we have more trade among ourselves rather than focusing on.
So I'll come back later on to ask you about whether it will be an impediment to the gains made so far in AFTA. In fact, Francis made a comment on that and said that EPA is bigger than AFTA. I'll come back to you and ask that specific question, whether it would be, we all heard about AFTA and the progress we are going to make and how the African economy is going to grow, how this will now be a challenge. They running together, being able to run together or run on their sides. But Solomon, kindly indulge me. Let me go for a quick break. When I come back, I will ask you about the fears and the panic you guys have in the industry for the SMEs. So stick and stay with us. We'll be right back.
Are you tired as a consumer in Ghana when it comes to issues that confront you as a consumer? Worry no more. Kofi Capital, I'm here to give you the information, all that you need to make sure that your right is protected as a consumer. We have too many laws and agencies that should protect the right of the consumer. I'm here to give you the information that will help and assist you to get goods and services delivered to you without any worries. Watch the Capito Show on Metro TV.
You're welcome back. So I'm still here in the studio with my guests tonight, and of course on Zoom as well. Francis is on Zoom. Let me come to you, Solomon. I was asking you about the fears and panics. Initially, I had made the comment that government says it wants to focus on foreign direct investments. This means that you would get the opportunity to have partnerships with companies that are coming in. You would have business transfer, idea transfers, and all of that. You're still looking at how you will be able to survive.
Well, so I think it's a good point to raise, and like my guy said, we are not trying to say that, paint a gloomy picture of the whole thing. It's good. I mean, as a businessman, what you sought for is a bigger market to trade. So that is perfect, no doubt about that. But there are issues that we need to look at for, all right? And I'll talk about one, the issues of standardization. You know, what you do in Ghana, what we do, how does that, the standard in here with the ones in the UK, the European market, okay? What measures are we putting to ensure that what we produce in Ghana will meet the standard of the European market? That's one key thing to talk about. Now, of course, if you produce in Ghana and you take it out there, I've seen many instances where produce go and then they go bounce back because it doesn't meet certain requirements, certain standard, all right? So what are we doing to put in place to ensure that what we produce can meet the standard? Because now we're going to compete with them on the market. Whether I like or not, we compete with them on the market. So it means that we need to be on the same standard. All right, that is one key thing. The second thing is about the production capacity. Now, the market is big, fair enough. But if you can produce big, how can you then take advantage of the market? All right, and how can you produce big if you don't have the support you need to produce big? You need investment to come through to produce big. So there are a lot of things that we need to look at for, not just being excited about the bigger size of the market, but then how do you take advantage of this bigger market? What do we need to make sure that we can produce to meet standard? So that is one key thing. Issues of partnership is key. I mentioned earlier on that when people come into to work in Ghana, there must be a clause to say that before you can set up in Ghana, you need to be able to partner with maybe one or two SMEs on certain class, certain level, so that the issues of money transfer is there, the issues of funding into their ideas is there, but one day come in and they're able to work on their own and they employ just 2-3 people and then another day they take their returns away. It doesn't develop as much. So there must be a conscious effort to connect these people coming in to the local market, local SMEs, so they can be able to partner with them and produce with them and have, I know there are certain instances where you need to have the major shareholder of the company must be a Ghanaian. That is there. I'm sure it's a JPC law. But how effective is that going to be with this agreement? We need to look at that. So if you are coming to invest in Ghana, create a partnership with a Ghanaian SME, are you going to have 50% or 51% of it, or 60%, or 70-30? Or they are going to hold a bigger share of it? These issues need to be looked at for, as we progress. And again, the issues of competition is key. When they come in here, for instance, let's say Kantaka, for instance. Kantaka is producing cars here. Now we've got the other cars, people coming in. What shows that Kantaka can survive? Okay, so what benefit they get? For instance, when they come in, they get some benefits. That you, the local person, you don't get that benefit. Okay, so it's always hard for we those here to produce. to meet their demand. And if you go to China, China produce large quantity because they got the capacity to produce large. But in Ghana, you can produce large, and that always make our products expensive. All right, because I mean, if the person can produce 1,000 quantity per hour, they produce, and the more you produce, sometimes the lesser the cost. But I don't have that capacity. I can produce just small amount. So other day, because I can produce small amount, it costs higher to produce in one corner than the people who have got the huge capacity to produce. So their products are always lesser cost compared to what we have here. The issues of costing is one key as well. How are we going to ensure that when we produce, one, it meets the same standard, two, the costing competition is key. That our products may not be expensive, because why would I go to China and go import clothing, import fabric? Because the Chinese one is less expensive. Why not the Ghanaian one? Because the Ghanaian one is what? It's high in cost. But again, if you understand them, it's high cost because of the material that they need to produce. Because they don't have the capacity to do more. So we need to look at all those areas, not just being excited. Good, it's good to be excited, fair enough. But then we need to go into the details and see what measures and what policies are we going to enact to back this policy, this whole agreement, to ensure that we cannot, will not collapse our own markets.
Right. So there is a question here which goes to Paul. It says, I think they are afraid because the AFCFTA is in place, so they have to rush Ghana into signing this agreement. I'll come back to take your comment on that. But let me come to you again, Francis. The Chamber of Commerce, I don't know whether you have been engaged extensively, because you are very critical in this whole agreement in the trade area of Ghana and how our relationship with other countries, especially the EU and even the AFCFTA is. Have you been engaged? And then I'm sure I'll put up this question to you as well. You spoke about the free trade area, African free trade area. Someone thinks that this is being signed in earnest because AFCFTA has started.
Now, first of all, let me make this correction. I said that we thought that the African Continental Free Trade Area is the biggest in the world, but the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, which is the Indo-Pacific bloc, made up of China, Indonesia, Singapore, 15 countries, which have signed another free trade area agreement, is now becoming the biggest free trade area in the world, and not the African Continental Free Trade Area.
Right.
So not the, so that is the correction I want to make.
Noted. Thank you very much.
Yeah, like I said, I agree largely with my colleagues, the point they've made, but let's situate the whole EPA in perspective, because the EPA, like I said, has a bigger scope over ordinary free trade area. And so this one, as we speak about, it is not originally a unilateral agreement, something between Ghana and the European Union, so that you will say that the European Union is bigger than Ghana. It is an EU ECOWAS agreement. Now, already, apart from China, the biggest market for the European Union is the ECOWAS, or the West African, the Sub-Saharan African countries. So that is already something that is there. It's not something that is coming up. So in the EPA, what we are doing is that you want to leverage on a reciprocal development and partnership. So when European Union or the EU market or the EU countries have already taken over the Sub-Saharan African market, what do? This was a partnership in order to leverage and to bridge that gap. Unfortunately, Nigeria has not signed. That is why we have come this far. So like I said, this agreement is interim on the basis that immediately Nigeria signs, it is going to replace all the interim agreements.
Yes.
And those we scrap off. Yes. So let's look at it from that perspective and understand that it is not something that is going to perpetuity.
Right.
So secondly, I understand all the challenges that we're talking about, especially like my brother from the SME sector, like somebody with the Ghana Chamber of Commerce will be agitating for the competition law as we speak now. Now, the second phase of the AFCAFTA, or the African Continental Free Trade Area, is for competition and intellectual property. Ghana has no competition law to guard our businesses. At our level at the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce, we have concerns. Let me say that at the council level, there were some engagements, and then the leadership were engaged. But as you always expect, government has its own prospects and timelines for doing certain things.
Right.
So our understanding is that we have further engagement and then push for certain legislative policies and then instruments to be passed so that it will guard and protect our businesses, especially the antitrust law, which is going to give a lot of advantages to multilateral companies over our small and medium
right.
investors
Okay.
in Ghana.
So, Francis,
Thank
you very much on that. Unfortunately, our time is up, but we'll engage again on this particular topic. Let me give you just 1 minute. 1 minute to round up on the earlier question I asked you, and then your final comment.
Yes, I think you were asking about the Africa Continental Free Trade Area and the
1 minute, unfortunately, our time is up.
Yes.
Kindly forgive me.
So with that, I think we have the CFTA, of course. In the midst of this, we are going to have countries having bilateral agreements, whether it's another country or with multiple of countries. Of course, in this age, we will be looking at Ghana having an agreement with China, which is also a major part. Ghana can have a conversation with US in terms of trade and development related issues. So I think going forward, what I'm expecting to see is that in the midst of this Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which is what you've been yearning for so many decades now, since the formation of the AU, which gained the political aspect, but the economic aspect has not been fulfilled. And now we have it here and working. I'm anticipating that there are guidelines for member countries to follow when they decide to engage other countries in terms of arranging agreements beside the AFCFTA.
Right. Thank you very much. So Paul Frimpong is with CGIA, economist and an investment analyst. Solomon is the Executive Director, Ghana Startup Network, Pan-African SMEs. And we had Francis Kofi Kranchisechi, lecturer, consultant, Center for African Trade and Investment Policies, and a member of Ghana Chamber of Commerce and Industry, join us on Zoom. The rest of the people who were here with me in the studio. My name is Kwesi Efri.
My 1 minute.
Unfortunately, they are cutting us.
That's my 1 minute.
Kindly indulge me. Kindly indulge me. Thank you very much. You are brother. We always have you in the studio. So thank you very much for joining us tonight, gentlemen. It's been a beautiful show. Thank you very much for watching us from home. My name is Kwesi Efri.
Metro TV, insightful and inspiring moments.
It's News Night here on Metro TV and also on DSTV channel 277. In current affairs, we have the latest political and social news. The business bit brings you up to speed with the happenings in the world of business, commodities, the stock and forex market. We also have the latest in the world of sports, plus news across our borders in our international segments. We're on air.
Hello and welcome to Metro News Night, live from our studios here at number 8 Avenue Extension here in Accra. My name is Noble Crosby Annan.
And I am Ifia Fusua. Coming up, our top stories now.
A very good evening to you and welcome to News Night here on Metro TV. I am Bryce Nana Kwesi Aminina.
Hello, good evening. My name is Ania Fomfofon. You're welcome to News Night on Metro TV.
I'll be bringing the latest in terms of sports right here in Ghana, Africa, and the rest of the world.
Metro TV, insightful and inspiring moments.